What's going on, y'all? It's your girl, your cousin, Tanisha Peoples Lab with my homeboys, my brothers, Jason B. Allen and Mr. Nehemiah Frank, and we are the trio that talks that real shit every Monday. Every Monday. We are so happy to be here with you guys today to kick the Thanksgiving week off. And before y'all go on y'all breaks, we need y'all to tune in on this conversation because we are continuing with our trend of celebrating Black women. And today we have three powerful Black women with us today. We have Mrs. Mrs. Zakia. Oh, Zakia, how I messed your name up like this? We work together every day. Let me just have y'all introduce yourselves because I don't know. I think I'm in vacation mode. So, Zakia, let's start with you.
Of course. Yep. I'm Zakia Sankar Jabbar. I work with Tanisha at Bright Beam as the National Director of Activism. And we just work with all the activists across the country. We go deep in 4 different cities around education, justice, and equity, particularly for children at the margins, but Black children in particular. And I'm excited to be here. I've done a lot of work before coming to Bright Beam in terms of the Dignity in Schools campaign and founding my own nonprofit, Racial Justice Now, as well. Again, with expertise in organizing Black parents in particular, mostly Black women.
All right, Ms. Robinson, let's go to you. Uh-oh. Okay, Dr. Crutcher, let's go with you.
Awesome. Hey, I'm Tiffany Crutcher, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Founder and executive director of the Terrence Crutcher Foundation, which is an organization that was founded through my pain and trauma of losing my twin brother to police brutality in 2016. All I can say is I've been fighting for the last 4 years nonstop. Been on the front lines of almost every issue here in Tulsa. And if you all have been paying attention, Tulsa has been in the spotlight for a lot of things. We're on the eve of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And as a descendant of a survivor, I've been dealing with that generational trauma. And I believe that the same culture that burnt down my great grandmother's community is the same state-sanctioned police violence that killed my twin brother. And so I made a promise in 2017 when Betty Shelby was acquitted that I would not rest until I transformed Tulsa's corrupt police department and policing across this nation. And so I've started several other coalitions here in Tulsa, like Demanding a Just Tulsa. Nehemiah Frank is definitely one of those charter members. I'm on the board of directors for the Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform. I'm a part of another coalition, Sisters of the Movement, with other sisters who's lost their loved ones to police brutality. And I've been to Capitol Hill twice, fighting to change the laws that give police officers authority to commit legal murder. And so I'll just stop right there, and I look forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And Ms. Robinson, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. Thank you all so much for having me first and foremost. Again, my name is Monteria Robinson. I'm the mother of Jamarian Robinson. My son was killed August of 2016. And since that time, I have been on the front line fighting for, justice and police accountability, here in the state of Georgia. And I feel like several mothers here in the state of Georgia, our voices have been silenced due to white media. And so what I've decided to do is take things a little further. So I actually just started my own organization called Justice for Georgia to house all the mothers of police violence here in the state of Georgia, because there's like a lot of us, a lot of stories that people don't know. We recently became a 501(c) about a week ago. Is the name of my organization is Justice for Georgia, and again, I've been on the front line.
Okay. As always, we go keep Georgia's internet service in prayer. We got to lay hands on it every week because y'all got some struggles. But hopefully, Ms. Robinson can join us as she go. We go pop her back in. Ms. Robinson, you there?
Looks like I can see
Yeah, I
her.
can see you.
I'm sorry. Something you all. I use StreamYard and Zoom and all these all the time, but for some reason today, I don't know why it keeps kicking me out. It's never happened before.
You know, it's okay. We got to keep hands on Atlanta's internet. We talk about it all the time, so we just go.
It's that voter suppression from our governor. It just illuminates over everything, right?
Yes. But again, I've been on the front lines for the last 4.5 years. And, you know, if you listen to me a lot of times, I always say, you know, it's time that, you know, we take matters in our own hand. And that's what I started to do. I started to accelerate. You know, I was like, okay, I've been saying this for 4 years. And since you guys are acting like you don't hear me, I'm going to make you hear me. I'm going to make you see me. So that's why, you know, when I'm out in the community, you know, you hear me say, you know, this is a revolution. This is a movement. And it is. And I say, if you all don't give us justice, then we're going to take it. And what I've decided to do is take justice in my own hands. Since the state of Georgia will not acknowledge what happened to my son, I put up murals throughout the city of Atlanta where they're going to see my son's face every corner they turn. I put up billboards so they'll see my son's face every corner they turn again. And just with that being said, that's just a way of me propelling and taking justice into my own hand. And since, you know, you hear me also say, you know, we got to get these police officers out of these blue uniforms and get them into orange jumpsuits. So that's
Oh man,
that was the call to action right there.
Right.
That was the call to action.
Just as she was preaching. So before we get started, before we get deep into the conversation, are there anything? Was there anything that we need to go over that happened over the weekend? I haven't seen much in the news. What y'all think?
I think that is just powerful to highlight the work that everyone is doing. One of the reasons why I was so excited about this conversation, I recently posted an article on Atlanta that discussed the impact that Black women have on everyone. And I know that there was a lot of conversation about, you know, the media. And I think most people are waking up to, I feel like we know, right? Because we're involved and we're engaged. But not a lot of people are connected to the media's role in dividing the Black community and dividing people against us. And so it's okay, brothers and sisters who are watching, for us to celebrate each other. It is okay for us to continue to lift the mantle for Black women who for so long, you know, the unselfishness that they have given to ensuring that our communities are bettered. It's okay for us to celebrate them. And so that's one of the reasons why I was excited about that. Was everything this weekend. I was excited. I mean, you can ask my husband. I was excited about this conversation so that people can hear the stories and get informed about what's happening in our own backyard so we can continue to mobilize people. So that was the excitement. This conversation was the excitement for the weekend.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll say the excitement this weekend, Dr. Crutcher and I and a few other members of our community were honored on a mural in Tulsa, which is absolutely amazing. I'm extremely humbled, especially I'm right next to Dr. Crutcher in the mural, and she is the force behind the movement, not only in Tulsa, but across the country. And I would say that her energy has definitely rubbed off on the Black Wall Street Times. And I don't think that the Black Wall Street Times would be as far as it is today without Dr. Crutcher. But let's talk about Kyle Rittenhouse for just a second. This dude just was released $2 million bail. Somebody gave him that money, right? And then I was thinking to myself, like, well, what about Khalif, Gowder from Rikers Island? This brother was in jail, no trial for 3 years. 2 out of the 3 years he spent in solitary confinement, only to succumb to the pressure of the trauma and ended up committing suicide. So the double standard of justice, white supremacy, these systems, we're still pushing to tear them down. And I'm happy to see these incredible queens here doing the work that needs to be done to make that happen.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. That was, and I think, the sad part is that news kind of flew under the radar, that the fact that, he as a young white man gets to get released from jail and spend Thanksgiving with his family when so many black men and women have been gunned down and don't have the same opportunity.
Right.
You know, I'm scared because he's only a couple of hours away from me. So it's like, suppose he want to come to Chicago and shoot some shit up, you know, because they just had another shooting in Wisconsin this weekend at a mall. Yep. And supposedly the suspect is a 15-year-old white boy, you know, and so it's like they get their freedom. We don't get justice. And so we're gonna dive into that conversation today. And Neo, I just shared your post about that, comparing Khalif Browder with Rittenhouse, and it's like perfect example. Like, I applaud y'all for that.
And it starts early, right? So my introduction to advocacy was organic, just like the other two Black women, on this panel today. And for me, thank God, I think I said it earlier, I certainly don't want to join that, how do I say it, that experience of losing my son as well. However, the system of white supremacy infiltrates every single institution in this country, including education. And so for me, how I was introduced to this work was fighting for my baby. Literally, he was a baby. He was 3 years old when teachers started to identify him as a problem. He was identified for expulsion from preschool. So we know that we live in a country where we have what's called a preschool to prison pipeline, or preschool to death pipeline in this country, where they target Black children. And the data actually shows us that specifically Black boys are targeted. And that was my experience in Ohio, and how I began to start even organizing other Black women, because when I started talking to them, I noticed if they had sons, 9 times out of 10, they had a similar experience, that I did. So think about the kind of inoculation that young Black boys start to receive, even when they're babies and being introduced into school. They're being told that they're defective, that they're deficient, that you're not good enough, that you're scary, right? And so that's been my whole life's work, since that experience. I've been in the trenches organizing in Ohio, pushing back on sometimes people who are supposed to be our allies, but that's the necessary work, right? Is to make sure that we hold everybody accountable, to our families, and especially our children. We should be able to protect our children in this country. So I'm often not surprised when I see things like Kyle Rittenhouse. We know that the world conspires to make sure people like him succeed, even when they kill people, even when they kill people, but we have to do the opposite, right? I can't imagine the pain. And I know she died from a broken heart. As you all know, Khalif Browder's mother passed away a few years ago from a heart attack. That lady literally died from a broken heart.
Yep.
And I'm gonna stop talking now so I don't start crying, but I think about her and the pain she must have felt for her baby. She did not have the money to get her baby out of jail, sitting there for 2 years without ever being charged with a crime. That is criminal. That is criminal, and nobody should put up with that in this country.
Yes.
Zakia's points are so powerful. It takes me back to when I was a school administrator and sitting in courtrooms, right? And watching them bring in paperwork, and my heart like breaks remembering it, because I could see the faces of teachers, and teachers are thinking, I'm just following the system. Like, this child's behaviors are really severe. Nobody's supporting me. So I'm just following what the system says do. And seeing teachers and counselors in tears, realizing that they had me create a record for this Black boy and this Black girl. And now they're being expelled from a school system where the county is extremely large. And so you have to literally travel an hour and a half. Tanisha Banks talked about this on a town hall that, Neo and I hosted, about the Black and brown children that get suspended in Gwinnett County, and how their parents and family members have to rally together to travel almost 45 minutes to an hour for our children to be educated properly, because they were targeted and pushed out of schools and pushed out of communities in the systems that are waiting to either imprison them or kill them. And these are the stories that we're not hearing every day from Black women. We're not listening to Black fathers. We're not listening to Black grandparents that are telling us these things every day. So I just wanted to highlight that, to Zakia's point about the trauma that everyday people are dealing with. You don't have to just have a loved one that was shot. We're all experiencing this trauma with our loved ones who are fighting these battles every day.
Right.
We literally experiencing a slow death. If you think about it, it's because when you think about the heart attack that his mother had, that was years of cortisol, which we know is a stress hormone. I'm not a doctor, but I'm familiar with the stress hormone that we know contributes to the health disparities that impact our community. We know that we have strokes at a higher rate than other people. We have higher heart attacks. That's literally the slow death of anti-Black racism that we deal with. And like you're saying, in the South, a lot of our family members and members that I know are in Mississippi as well. That's ground zero as well for the school to prison pipeline in some of those small counties. In the Black Belt, in Greenville area of Mississippi, where they're literally criminalizing Black children as small as 3 years old. This is an epidemic, and it's really at a crisis level. Yeah. And you're right. We're not talking about it as much as we should be. And I'm glad that at least here on this platform that we are talking about it so more people can understand what's really happening in our communities.
And if I could just jump in, Jason, I mean, you made a powerful point about it's not just about Black people being shot by the police, and you stated the genocide of colored people. I think about Benjamin Crump's book, The Legalized Genocide of Colored People. If you all haven't grabbed a copy, you should do so, because he talks about this across the system. He gives the definition of genocide, but he talks about the slow genocide of colored people. And Jason, when you talked about this school safety, I'm working on a project as we speak, just got off of a call discussing the child equity index here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we're trying to reimagine what school safety looks like. And we're trying to mitigate suspensions, and we're trying to abolish policing within the school system. But what was alarming to me are the policies that are in place that do more harm than good for our Black and brown children. And when I looked at the maps, communities of color, was so red. The numbers were alarming when you look at how many children have to walk to school and can't catch a bus, and that pathway to school, having to cross interstate, their bus stops in violent crime areas and neighborhoods. There was this bus stop where 3 shootings had just happened within the last 3 months. And so we're putting our children at risk because they're not privileged enough to have parents that can drive them to school every single day. When you look at our communities that don't have sidewalks, I think about 2 little boys that were arrested right after George Floyd and pinned to the ground and brutalized, and they were crying, "I can't breathe," because they got cited for jaywalking in their own neighborhood that doesn't have sidewalks. And so when we talk about this systemic racism, our little Black boys, they have targets on them that's tattooed on them. And we got to figure out how to build community power and start taking care of our communities ourselves. And so thank you for bringing up that point, Jason.
So let me ask y'all, because we deep in this conversation. As you all know, we deviate from the questions that we seeing often. And so why are Black boys and girls so damn dangerous in this country? Why are they targets?
Oh yeah.
We're not dangerous.
Well, why are you perceived as dangerous?
It's we've had these conversations. I've watched some of Zakia's shows, and sis, I always follow everything that you've been on. And it's so funny that we talk about these things on different platforms. I take away that people are still learning these things. And we, even though we're educated, we still have to keep learning. I think about the Powernomics books, that series of books that we've, been reading and focusing on. But then I also think about this book that I just recently read about the Atlanta race riots and how it talks about Tulsa and other areas in this country. It's a repeat, right? Our adversaries are so upfront. They're going to tell you, like, hey, listen, I'm going to come and slap you in the face at 3:00. And at 3:00, they're going to be there to slap you in the face the exact way that they told you. And so they have created us to be the enemy, to be the bad person, to be the darkness. And so what we are doing is basically re-educating our people to say, listen, That same fire that they put, I wanted to say this, that little whiteboard that they bailed out, they got all this money together for. I can't even say his name because that's how pissed I am about the rhetoric behind it. But this is what they do. They create those narratives and then they support, they're ruthless to this extent that they're going to support their people to the nines. You killed that grandmama? Well, you still Susan grandson. So come on, we're going to protect you. We're going to rally behind you. We're going to do this. And that's what they do. And so we have to take that same energy to say, no, we are raising Black kings and queens or bosses or whatever we want to, use to empower them. We have to work even harder to change the narrative that they continue to create about us.
Well, you asked why come Black people are so bad. I think it goes all the way back to when Christopher Columbus and those folks came over, those colonizers, and created this narrative of racial difference, saying that these were savages, these were beasts. I think it goes back to when they created the Constitution and said that we were, 3/4 human. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, I think about when they called my brother a bad dude from a helicopter from thousands of feet up in the air. And so we have to get good, Jason, as you stated, at controlling our own narrative. They're good at controlling the narrative, point blank. And so our Black boys aren't just ball players. They're not just football players or rappers. When I see a little Black boy, I tell him, you look like a lawyer. You look like a doctor. You look like a businessman. And so we have to get our messaging concise and clear, and we have to start speaking life and controlling. And I refuse to let these folks vilify my twin brother and say he was a thug or he was a drug addict or all of those things. And I study Brian Stevenson. He always says we're more than the worst thing that we've ever done. But I made sure I didn't let hate, racism, or bigotry control my brother's story. I'm his twin. I knew him better than anybody. And as Mrs. Robinson said, I've been making them hear me. I've been making them hear us for 4 years, and they're about ready to take me out too. And so we got to get good at controlling the narrative.
Powerful.
Yeah, I would say to that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Dr. Crutcher is absolutely right. The way that I see it is, the stigma comes from history, from slave revolts that happened, hundreds of years ago. White people have this fear, and they still have it today, that because we are owed justice, that we're going to come and get it by any means necessary. And if that means through violence, that means through violence. And I think that is one of the real fears, is the fear that, they're going to take revenge. And, that mixed with the stigma of us being 3/5 of a human being. It's still here. That stuff has converged together in many of their minds, and they believe it. It's the reason why Montaria Robinson's son was shot 74 times. Like, he received 74 bullets, but more than over 100 bullets, 76. Over 100 bullets flew through the house. Like, there's no justification for having to overkill a human being or even kill a human being at all.
Yeah.
I would say, in addition to what everyone has said, it's really about the dehumanization process, and it's definitely rooted in history. In order for these people to feel like they want to keep their own humanity and to justify the way that they have treated Black people and continue to treat Black bodies in this world, is that they had to they literally created through science. That's why we have to be careful about saying we trust science. There's something called eugenics, and everybody on here needs to research it. It was actually in universities, Princeton, Stanford. And this is not a conspiracy. This is real. No. These people literally said that Black people have smaller brains. That means we were inferior. You had up and until the 1990s, and even now to today, people like Charles Murray still pushing this idea that Black people are inferior because of our skin color, because of the way we look, because of phenotype, because of things that literally were made up by scientists to say that we were inferior. So this is really a psychological game that white people have created to make themselves feel better about the way they treat and dehumanize, kill, and maim Black people, but also other people of color as well. Let's not forget what happened to our brothers and sisters, our Native brothers and sisters. They outright just genocide of us and Native Americans still to this day.
Yeah.
And then they will say, well, why don't you go pray about it? And here is the book about all the things that you should do to forgive us, to continue to kill y'all year after year after year. And then we start to believe that, oh, let me shun my brother because he's an alcoholic and I got to put him out of the house. Let me shun my daughter because she's a lesbian, or let me shun my daughter because now she's had a child out of wedlock. And so we take this book that they have created, right? And they have used to demonize us and natives and say, oh, they don't have any sense of normalcy. So we need to create it for them. Let's take away what they've done and we'll create something for them that fits our narrative of coming in and taking over, having our way with whatever we want and do what we want to do by any means necessary. So yes, Neo, to your point, they should be scared. They should be thankful that Black people haven't collectively gotten together and said, God damn it, I'm tired of y'all doing the same thing over and over again. I can't read my great grandfather's journal again to read all of the things that you all continually do. But then we're going to say we sorry. And then we're going to send the Black preachers in to pray and have visuals and circles and kumbaya and let's forgive. And then we're sitting up here having these same conversations. And I'm like, now I'm tired of turning the other cheek. Now I love the Lord, don't get it wrong. But baby, where I come from, if I turn too many times, I'm going to turn away from myself and then I'm going to be knocked out. So I got to be able to be in a position to say, when you come for me, I'm coming back for you. That's all I wanted to say.
Yes.
And that's normal. That's what you're supposed to do.
And that is normal. If that's okay to do.
But we also have to look at it too, you know, as you all stated, you know, it all stems from slavery. You know, I always say, you know, my grandparents, they had Emmett Till. You know, my parents, they had Mark Clark and Fred Hampton. My generation, we had the Rodney King. You know, and today's generation, you know, I say they have Jamarian Robinson. You know, Jamarian Robinson's case is one of the most heinous cases in U.S. history, and no one is talking about it. No one is doing anything about it. How many people know somebody that's been shot 50 plus times? How many people know someone that plus they had flashbang grenades thrown on them, landing on them, burning them? Someone walked there, stole my son, shot down into his body 5 times. Then after that, they handcuffed my son and drug him down the flight of stairs. So white media took my son's story and dropped so many false narratives on my son, and it played out. It played out for the last 4 years, and I've been out here beating the pavement, saying, "Listen, this is what happened to my son. My son was a student athlete at Tuskegee University. These are all lies." But now, with everything being said, I had to go in. I had to hire my own investigator. I had to hire my own ballistic person. I had to hire my own forensic person, my own chiropractor, so on and so forth, because I knew as Jamarian's mother, I was going to have to be able to prove what happened to him versus the stories, the false narrative that they gave. And I've been able to do so. So with all of that being said, I have all the expert reports back now. Number one, the first thing the expert report says, because they stated my son had a shootout with them. That's the false narrative that they dropped to the media. Number one, the gun that was found on the scene did not even have my son's fingerprints on it. Number one. Number two, my son was shot 6 times in the palm of his right hand, 5 times in the palm of his left hand, all down his body, his shins, his groin, his thighs, his torso. My son, they walked up this after they threw the flashbang grenades at my son. They all told in their original statements that my son did not move after they shot basically 20 rounds at him. He fell to the ground after they shot 20 rounds. That's what they all stated. All the police officers stated, oh, after 20 rounds, he fell to the ground. If he fell to the ground after 20 rounds, why was 70 plus more rounds shot at my son? Why was flashbang grenades deployed at my son? And they also stated after deploying the flashbang grenade that no one never shot at my son anymore after that. Come to find out, based on the video, after the flashbang grenades were deployed at my son, another volley of gunfire was fired at him. And I was able to prove all of this with my expert witnesses. And so it was just so many lies, you know, lie on top of the next lie on top of the next lie. And I've been.
Oh man.
No, I hear that pain.
Yeah,
and to me, she's pointed out to something that I'm also very critical of is the media.
Yeah.
And the media oftentimes kills us again, even after the police have killed us. We saw that with Trayvon. We saw that in so many cases. Even with Breonna Taylor, look at what they said about her. Oh, she was a trap queen, all of this. What makes you think, even if all of that was true, that's what I try to get us to think, even if all of that was true, what makes you think that the police is the judge and jury out on the street?
Right. And why, as a country that is built on "In God We Trust," would say that, oh, well, you drank alcohol, so you deserve to die like that. You skipped class, so you deserve to be killed or shot down in the street.
Or you smoked weed, so the
the
police deserve to kill you.
Right. Like what in this? Why do we say "In God We Trust" in this country, and then these police officers shoot us by any means necessary just because you walked out of your house to go take out the trash? Like, it's so many stories of Black people or Black bodies that have been killed in a country that says it's a land of the free, in God we trust. You know, we want to have liberty and justice, but it's never granted to us. And so how do we get this justice that so many Black activists, whether it's female, male, trans, youth, elderly, so many people are advocating for so many things? How do we really get justice?
Well, you know, I'm trying not to really break down and cry with Mrs. Robinson, because just hearing her story is, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
My heart goes out to you, Ms. Robinson, and I definitely understand and feel your pain. It goes back to what Tanisha said earlier. Why are Black people deemed bad? Why are they vilified when they're killed? Why do police officers shoot first and ask questions later, but they can go and take a Dylan Roof to Burger King because he's hungry, or they can apprehend someone that shoots up a school with no incident? Why is it? Or they can get a Kyle Rittenhouse out, you know, on bail and say he needs to run for office. Why is that? And how do we get justice? I'm kind of baffled at this point. You know, I believe that with George Floyd and his killing, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, those back-to-back killings, I do believe that attitudes are shifting, because before, even though we've had a litany of these killings on video, they still deemed them isolated incidents. But now people are starting to say, well, maybe we are in a state of emergency. And if we don't change legislation now with this George Floyd Policing Act, I don't think we'll ever do it. If we don't change and legislate with this new administration, I don't think we'll ever do it. And then we're going to have to, Jason, as you say, start taking matters into our own hand. I vacillate every single day. I was one of those people because I come from a family of faith. My parents are ministers. Before the video came out, I asked everybody, please protest peacefully. Please, let's do it a different way. Let's go the policy route. And 4 years later, they still haven't heard me. Not one policy has changed that would prevent what happened to my twin. See, they lied and said my brother was reaching in the window, but he was tased and shot and tased all at the same time. And his arm was falling, and they froze that shot, and the window was up, but you could see blood running down the door. Not only did they shoot, tase, and shoot, but they left him there. They didn't render first aid. They trampled over him like he was roadkill. And then they gave this woman her job back. They allowed her to watch the video. They allowed her to get her story straight. They turned away witnesses. They did all of that, but nothing has changed. And so I vacillate every single day between peace and burning this bitch down. Can I cuss on this show a little bit? I don't intend to do it, but I believe we can curse on this show. But I vacillate every single day because, I mean, this mayor went on CBS National Sunday Morning News and blamed my brother's death on his use of drugs, in the same breath that he was talking about the 1921 race massacre, in the same breath. And so I don't believe that this man is qualified to talk about my legacy, my history, about justice for people, when his legacy, his ancestors were responsible for burning down this community. And then you go and you blame a son of Tulsa, Oklahoma, a descendant, for his own death because of drug use. I mean, it's just, this is what we're dealing with in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and around this country. And you ask, how do we get justice? We just have to keep fighting. We have to keep taking it to the street. And at some point, maybe they'll hear us. But if we don't get anything passed now, I don't know if it'll happen.
But let me,
We also have,
can I ask this question real quick? Because one of the things that kind of not necessarily bothered me, but after one of the mass shootings, I can't remember which one it was, you saw the formation of Moms Demand Action, right? And it was a mass shooting of white students, right? And so this group has been formed and it advocates against like different gun policies and things like that. And there are a few Black mothers in that group, but it was formed out of a again to address the issue of violence in white communities, similar to when the crack, when crack hit Black communities, it was a problem and we were crackheads. But now you got drugs in white communities, it's a pandemic and they need help. And that's similar to gun violence. And so just the same as they have this moms demand action for white parents or white parents and white kids, I'm thinking about, how do we form a Black mothers movement, a mass Black mothers movement that, pushes and advocates for reforms and for justice? Do y'all think that we can make that happen in some way?
I think that would be powerful.
I do know that Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon Martin's mom, actually one of her missions is combating gun violence. What people mistake, I know the Black Lives Matter movement actually evolved out of Trayvon, but her son, she tells everybody her son was lost to gun violence, not necessarily police brutality. Okay, and so that's really what her aim is. But because, the Black Lives Matter started to really get behind all of these police shootings, I believe that police shootings and gun violence are one and the same. You don't get to isolate those. And so she has the circle of mothers. I'm actually a twin sister. I'm not a mother, but my mother, she's been invited to Sabrina's retreats, and she started an initiative here with mothers on ground. And so we have to kind of start locally and then start building, across state lines if we're going to do this. I just believe we have to stop working in silos because we're all pushing for the same thing. And when we learn, according to that African proverb, that when spider webs come together, they can tie up a lion, then we'll be better off. We got to start building collective power and detoxify ego and understand that this is a movement. This is not about people in motion seeking to facilitate their own self agendas, but it should be one agenda. It should be one cause, one purpose. And when we do that, I think we'll be able to slay this giant.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I thought it was interesting that I saw that Lucy McBath and also Trayvon Martin's mother is Dr. Crutcher just highlighted that they claim that they are isolating gun violence as the issue instead of the motives behind the person who had the gun. And that's where I fall on the spectrum. I have to say, I'm a student. I'm a student of, the movement in terms of the Deacons for Defense. I'm also a student of the Black Panther Party, and I'm also a member of the National Association of Black Gun Owners. Because this issue around Moms Demand Action, I also had a problem with that. Because they fly into communities after there's a shooting, but they never talk about racism. They never talk about white supremacy. And they also never talk about the underlying issues, at least when it comes to Black folks, when it comes to intra-community violence. Nobody is saying that intra-community violence or what they call Black on Black violence, I don't use that term. Intra-community violence is actually a byproduct of economic deprivation. And until we deal with economic deprivation, education issues, and all the other issues, food deserts, all of these things that we don't necessarily have access to, I don't want to talk about taking nobody's guns away, because I'm clear that white supremacy and these militia groups, Black people don't need to be unarmed. That may not be a popular opinion on
but it's very
this
true.
thing, but that's how I feel about it. We do not need to be unarmed when you got militias and everybody else, the police, everybody is armed, and then we're talking about we need to take our arms away. I'm not on that side of the fence. I am on the side of the fence that you need to make sure people who have mental illnesses and all of those kind of things, of course, they don't necessarily need access to guns, because we don't want them to kill people. But at the same time, I'm not for these blanket kind of changes that would weaken the Second Amendment, because they would target Black people first before they ever target white people.
That is such a powerful point, and it makes me think about when we have emergencies in schools. You know, they tell us, and I'm just, you know, let's just put it all out there. They'll tell us, okay, if a shooter comes into the school, everybody go and line up against the wall, and then you hide. Nah, baby, we gonna go on this side, and we gonna be out of the way of the door. But everybody, you gonna pick up something. You see everybody picking up something. So if they don't send me this thing and that door opens, we going for broke, baby. Because if we going out of here, at least they gonna say we went out of here fighting, and they gonna find the person. They not just gonna find us. They're gonna find them. We're not teaching our children in the right sense. The media teaches our children to, oh, sis got an attitude with you. You need to slap her up. Bruh did this to you. You need to take care of that. But when they call your grandma a nigger or an old bitch in the store, you sit there and don't know what you're so shell shocked by. I can't believe this white woman talked to my grandma, and you can't get it together to be able to defend. And so I do believe in that. We need to defend ourselves and properly teach our children how to defend the least of those in our communities.
Yes, yes. Y'all preaching today. Y'all see I done threw my handkerchief at the screen a couple of times because y'all be here preaching. I wanted to, Jason highlighted a question from a Black parent earlier, a Black mother, and she wanted to know what can be done for working Black moms struggling to take care of their families and advocate for equity. And I think this question is huge because unlike white people, Black people are expected to work full-time jobs and be full-time advocates in their spare time, which there's no such thing. Right. You know, so it's like, how can we do both on top of taking care of families, working full-time jobs, and fighting for Black lives? How are y'all doing it?
That's almost an impossible thing to do. But I think in the spirit of who we are as Black people, we know that historically we've had to do it all before. We shouldn't have to, but we've had to find the time. And she's actually speaking to my experience, although I will say that I had a little bit of privilege because I had a support system when I was fighting and advocating full time. It's a full-time job to be advocating and holding a school board accountable. You know, in Dayton, we had an elected school board. So I found out very quickly you had to go to all of the meetings that happened before the meeting to really understand everything that they were doing, every decision making. That's a lot of time. And most of the time you're sitting there, you're taking notes, and you're only able to talk at one school board meeting. You're only able to, you know, make comments and meet with people, you know, kind of like separately. So all of that work was the kind of dedication that it took to try to hold the school district accountable to our kids. The one thing that I would say to try to give a practical approach, you know, to this parent, if she's in Georgia, I would say that I know that there are groups in Georgia that are working specifically on education. Of course, she can contact Jason, but Gwinnett Stop is in Gwinnett County. And I know that they work specifically on education equity issues, is led by Marlene Tillman. She can find Marlene on social media. She can go to Gwinnett Stop's website, and she really needs to connect with the organization or an individual that's already doing the work, so it's not so hard for her. Become a part of a community that already exists, you know, so that you can help build capacity with them, and they can also help you in return. That's what I was able to do, was just start organizing just regular people, and we would all take shifts on when we would go to this meeting, when we would have a meeting, when we would do a strategic plan. Like, it literally is going to take you working outside of your job. You get off your 9 to 5, and then it's time to go do the community work. It's unfair. It's extremely unfair. And I talk about that, you know, when it comes to like some of the, you know, infrastructure that we see that gets developed in other places. We really need infrastructure and funders to support those grassroots folks who need the help the most.
That's good.
Can I just add to that? I mean, you're spot on, Zakia. First and foremost, you got to figure out what your role is and narrow your focus. But I believe that coalition building is vitally important, and that organizing apparatus and infrastructure, it has to be in place. And I can speak to being off balance because right now, as you say, we have to go to work. We have to fight the school board. Now we have virtual school. We're doing it all, but you have to really establish a strong organizing apparatus and infrastructure and build this ecosystem so it's not one person doing the same thing. And I believe where we miss the mark is we forget to lace in a healing component, you know, to our work. And that's what I'm working on right now. How do we do this work through trauma and not focus on self-care and healing? And so we're going to start doing that. But so many grassroots organizations, we burn out and we end up falling off and we don't see you anymore because we've had to do it with our sheer will and determination. And then you have these white power structures and philanthropic organizations that are well intentioned and think they know what we need without including us. But you're right, we need the funding. We need the support. We need to get paid for the work we do. We got to stop having this scarcity mindset and say, hey, you're not going to suck me dry and get all of my intellectual property and my knowledge. I'm talking to white people right now because we've had to carry every burden. And now we got to teach you how to not be racist. And so we have to start demanding what it is that we need. And we have to start, you know, building stronger coalitions. So figure out what your role is, and let's start to heal at the same time. And I'm talking to myself because I haven't got there yet. I'm still trying to figure it out.
It's a work in progress. That coalition building was so big. When Zakia was talking, I was like, yes, Gwinnett, stop. GEEG is so many other organizations that we're connected to. And to be quite honest, y'all, we're actually the connectors, right? If you go on any of our pages, you will see Neo and you will see the Black Wall Street Times and you will see Dr. Crutch. You will see all of these people in their own lanes doing the work, but we're doing it together. I mean, any of our pages, you will see that. And for those who are watching, that's the connector right there. Now, this is what I tell my students, baby, I could give you everything, but that's not going to help. I got to give you nuggets and pieces so that you can go out and do. You got to. Now, I do agree with this part of the Bible. You have to study and show yourself approved. So you have to go out and do the work and study and build. Networking is such a powerful thing that connects to coalition building, but you have to go out there and see, and you'll find the things that you need, but look at the things that are being presented to you. And I credit Brightbeam for creating this network that brings all of these amazing activists together, right? In so many different places so that people in other areas can say, listen, my grandma lives in Canton, Georgia. Let me call them up and say, I know it's 2 hours from Gwinnett, but it's nowhere near you and they're 2 hours away. Contact them, connect them. You don't know about, listen, I don't even know a person in Georgia, but I know Zakia. So let me call up Zakia, and Zakia knows Tanisha. Tanisha knows me. Zakia knows me. So we can make it happen. So for those people that are asking those questions, you know, what do we do? How can we connect? This is the connection right here. Now, you don't want to put your whole game plan out because the enemy, just like the, you know, the enemy is watching too. So, you know, I ain't scared of the enemy, but I just want to give y'all enough, but not too much. So.
And I think one of the things is what we underestimate as a people is how many people are having the same struggle we're having, right? And so, you know, having those conversations with your neighbor or with your friend and say, hey, I'm going through this, that person is probably going to say, I'm going through the same shit. That's how you coalition build too at a grassroots level. Because when you have a number of people that are struggling and pissed off by the same damn thing and y'all decide to get together and fight it, that's powerful. That's the most powerful form of organizing. I think people really underestimate that power. And so I'm always saying, have conversations with the people that are closest to you in your neighborhood. Like if we can mobilize in Chicago, I talk about it all the time. We have the highest representation of Black leadership, right? But we ain't seeing nothing happen. If we at a local, at a grassroots level, organize all of our neighborhoods, all the Black people in Chicago, we wouldn't be pushed out. Our neighborhood wouldn't be under-resourced. We wouldn't be experiencing all the crime. So we got to get together and talk as a people to our neighbors, to our friends, to our family, and build those coalitions within our communities to actually affect change there and at the grassroots level.
That's good. Now I wanted to mess with Tanisha for a minute because your internet was breaking up a little, and it's not an Atlanta thing, but I didn't want to put that out there.
God damn, it done got up here to Chicago. You know
that
what?
Quick, it travels, man.
It's sorcery. It's sorcery.
It's
but
travels.
Before we got a couple more minutes. We got a couple more minutes left, and I'm trying to find my questions. My internet messing up, y'all.
It is. Hey, sis, can I do something right quick? I know Ms. Robinson is not on. I just wanted to touch right back on coalition building. So Neil actually is on the committee that I lead, is public administration for the People's Uprising. It started here in Atlanta. Of course, we connected with Stacey Abrams and her team to drive voter empowerment. But one of the things that we added to that was voter education. And so we used the stories of Jamarian Robertson and so many others. When Ms. Robinson spoke at the march, and Neil wrote a powerful article about this, about the New Age Harriets on the Black Wall Street Times. And this spoke to the power in her conversation. And what I've been trying to help people in Georgia understand is that since Trump, we just started there. Since Trump has been in office, there have been 87 deaths due to police brutality and or gun violence. That's not even the inner community. That's just the violence with guns and police towards people of color in the state of Georgia. And do you know that there are leaders here that don't even know that this is happening in our backyards? And so I wanted to shout out the People's Uprising for working with Jamarian's mom and so many others that we've had on the show to help uplift the voices of people down here in the South that are not being heard, because it's happening in Alabama, it's happening in Mississippi and Florida and everywhere else down here. And it's just kind of like, oh yeah, the South got something to say when no one's listening to us. And so I'm just honored to see the coalition is building so that these voices are being elevated in so many other places.
But can I connect that real quick? Because I think it's an important conversation to have while we're talking about coalition building, but they're also coalition disruptors, right? And so I think that, we go touch on it for a second while we're talking about activism has become very popular. I would say it became popular around Ferguson, right? And so you do have those people that capitalize on, Black trauma and Black plight to become these, renowned activists, and they not contributing. So how do we separate them from the true work that's being done and from the authentic coalitions that we're trying to build?
I think Malcolm X told us best, always side-eye anybody that white folks constantly putting up in front of your face to tell you who your leaders are.
Yeah, I totally.
I mean, I literally live by that. Like anybody that we constantly seeing, especially on mainstream media, constantly being propped up by mainstream media. I'm not saying everybody, let's be clear. Let's use our discernment, right? We can use our discernment. But anybody that's constantly saying that they speaking for us, and then we might hear some stuff that come out of their mouths and be like, no, that ain't how it's really going down in the community. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of have to be careful with that. The other thing is, and we got to talk about this. Y'all know we talk that real shit on this show. But look, I mean, so our movement has been co-opted, Tanisha.
Yep.
I have to give y'all a real live example. And, that's because I live in the DMV now. Even before I moved to the DMV, and this is related to the Baltimore uprising, there are people that are literally being paid to, and I'm not going to name any names because I'm trying not to do that. But there are people who are paid that when some stuff jumps off in our communities and we see an uprising getting ready to pop off, there are people that fly in to post pictures, to say that they're doing this, to say that they're doing that, and to come in and like calm everybody down. And the reason why I bring that up is because Baltimore already has a Black organizing infrastructure. And I got to shout out my brothers and sisters. The organization is called Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. And I remember there was a certain person who's very popular and highly paid right now. And it's a woman. she's very popular, highly paid, and you see her on MSNBC, you see her everywhere, CNN, and she's been on the cover of all these white magazines and everything like that. And she's considered a co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement. I'll leave it there.
You might as well go and say the name, Zakiya. You might as well go and tell us.
Go ahead, because we're going to need 2 more minutes on this one.
Baltimore, and those brothers respectfully told her, sister, we won't need you here, right? Like, we got Baltimore. We know the players in this community. We know the legislators. We already have an infrastructure in our community, and we got this. And when I saw that happen, unfortunately, Ferguson didn't have that, which is why you see so many grassroots activists still talking about their movement was hijacked, and it was. The people there were people that literally had their whole careers created off of Ferguson. Y'all know every single one of them. They got million followers on Twitter.
Yep.
And so this is what Tanisha is talking about. And we have to be able to call that to account. We have to hold certain people accountable of basically coming up off of Black suffering and pain. And we can't be about that. We cannot be about that. Go ahead, Dr. Crutcher. I see you getting in there.
Man, you're speaking my experience. I think this is the easiest way to fix this. If we don't elevate the lived experiences first, and if we're suppressing those voices, then that right there is a red flag. And so if Mrs. Robinson says that she wants to kind of do this or go that route, but then somebody else comes in and says, no, you got to go through us, or you got to do it this way, that's a red flag. And so the way to mitigate these coalition disruptors is to make sure that we're always elevating those lived experiences first, because they trump everybody else's academia, everybody else's ability to speak good and talk good. Those are the people that we have to center and elevate and build around, because I dealt with it. I came home, I lived in Montgomery, Alabama, got the call, flew right into Tulsa, and all I knew to do was fight. I said, I'm going to fight. And then I started getting all of these messages from this group and that group. Why didn't you invite these people? Or you need to make sure you talk to that person. And I'm like, first of all, I don't even know y'all. I don't even know. All I know is my brother was slaughtered and on the street, and I'm just trying to fight. I'm trying to protect my mom and dad. I'm trying to protect his kids. And you all are telling me I'm doing it the wrong way. I got to go through the NAACP. I got to go through this fake Black Lives Matter guy who I don't even know, and come to find out all of these people were trying to exploit my brother's murder.
Yes.
I'm out right now in Oklahoma.
Getting big grants off of his murder. Believe that. Getting big grants. Believe that.
I ain't seen him since. And Nehemiah will tell you, if you ain't really going through what we're doing, because Tulsa really hasn't had a culture of activism in a long time. And I believe that Eric Harris and Terrence's death were pretty much the catalyst in re-engaging people and bringing people back together. But there's been a lot of people spinning off and appearing post George Floyd and now getting grants. Now they're saying Black Lives Matter when they wouldn't say it because they would have lost their funding. Now it's the popular thing to do. Now you're getting grants off of the energy that we've created, because we're really fighting from our heart. We're fighting because it's our lived experience. And that's what I've seen. But hey.
And the thing is, we have to ask people, what is your program? What is your work? We are so quick to advance people and uplift people. And I've been guilty of it. I mean, there's even people that's been on this show. Now, we talking that real shit. I'll be honest. It ain't been everybody, but there has been one person who taught the good game and did not do anything at all. I met thousands of followers, like all of this. You're a teacher. I never see you talk about your students, but you out here dissing Black women, and now you want to create division amongst our community because you didn't get your way. And that's what happens when the attention is not on these people and they don't get their way. They want to create havoc with the communities and those white people who do feel bad enough to say, I want to correct actions and I want to do the right thing. Like, they come in and they agitate shit. And then it's like, well, oh, they're not organized now, baby. We've been organized. It's just that we are not spending our time and money on trying to look good to make this look pretty. This ain't pretty. People are getting slaughtered, like Dr. Crutcher just said, in the streets. Children are being killed. They're seeing their parents being abused. Parents are losing their children. So we don't have time to sit pretty. We have to get out here and work. And that's one of the things that I tell parents. You want to know a true activist? The true activist is going to say, baby, you hurt, and what can I do? Let me hold your purse. Let's go walk down here. Let's do this. Can I bring you some water? Let me call Neo. Let me call somebody. Let's get the people on notice. Like, we got to get the word out. Like, a true activist is doing what you see everybody on this platform right now doing, which is pushing the word, getting people to do it, not just saying, okay, give me all the stuff and then I'm gonna rack up the money and then I'm gonna be in Malibu vacationing while I'm still watching y'all talk about Black Lives Matter.
And
no, they be everywhere, and it ain't about hating. I'm calling it out because this is not new. You know, because some people say, well, aren't y'all hating on it? No, it's not about hating. I just have a sick feeling in my stomach that you coming up on a capitalist, you know, kind of way off of Black death.
That part.
I have a problem with that. I'm sorry.
That part. And then we ain't seeing none of it. It's the fact you coming up off of it, but you're not even trickling it back into the communities that you working off the backs of. That's the biggest. That's
the problem.
Damn,
I had people raise money in my brother's name. I didn't even know him. Activists.
Yeah, that part right there.
So scary.
That's a problem. And we really have to, like Zakiya said, call those people out. And not that they don't even have to be isolated. They just need to be called out. Like, look, we ain't fucking with them like that. You know, they ain't really about this life. That's kinfolk that ain't kinfolk. Honestly. Well,
I can tell you the grassroots activists in Baltimore, when Baltimore Uprising came out, if you notice, their movement wasn't hijacked the way that it was in Ferguson. The other thing that I think that's really critical that a lot of people don't know is that those activists who already have an infrastructure in Baltimore was able to win a $12 million annual youth fund after the death of that brother in Baltimore. And I'm shouting out Adam Jackson and Davon Love from Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, who are some of the most grassroots thought leaders, not just in Baltimore, but really in the country. And I knew those brothers before I even moved to Maryland because I was watching how they were moving. And they were very consistent in the fact that they advocated not just on behalf of Black people, but Black poor people in particular in Baltimore at the State House. And they won a $12 million fund. And so when we talk about funding grassroots organizations, that's exactly what they're doing to this day. That's something that they got tangible for the people in Baltimore after the death of our brother in Baltimore.
Yes, I love it. Who y'all?
This was powerful.
Yeah,
but okay, so just to this point, Zakiya made a great point, and I will be remiss to call this out. So of course we know it gets back to legislation, right? You know, the season starts up in January. What are our plans? What are Black women that are on the ground saying they need? Because that's what I want people to take away. Like, okay, we heard from Zakiya. She's saying, listen, here's what I need. Here's what I hope we're representing you well. But here's what my team members out here doing, and this is what they're saying they need. Ms. Robinson, what are you working on? What is it that you need? Dr. Crutcher, what is it that you're working on to push legislation? Because I think that also helps build the coalition, and it also helps build the word. So what can we do to help make sure that the people that get in these offices, right, in January, because now Warnock and Ossoff for Georgia, now we'll stand with y'all, but we also are coming with some demands on workforce development and improving our communities and making sure that we get the support that we've needed and asked for, and the 8 can't wait. Like, we want to see these things in action. We don't want to just be like, you know, okay, we helped y'all move over this hurdle and get in. It's time out for that too.
I'll yield to Mrs. Robinson since she hasn't been able to speak.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Get you back.
Yeah, actually, I've been trying to troubleshoot over here, so I think I figured it out. I'm on my iPad. But as you stated, you know, our goal is to, you know, keep pushing, getting people out to vote. You know, a lot of people are always saying, oh, your vote don't count. We proved in this election that our voices, our vote do count. You know, whether we're voting, you know, we got to make sure we're getting our people to to continuously vote, not only in our primary election, but also in our local elections too, because we want to make sure we're voting in our right governors, our right mayors, our right attorneys, so on and so forth, our right sheriff, because all of that matters, because it's really like a domino effect. Just recently, back in August, we had a major campaign push for a district attorney, and just because they look like us don't mean they for us. So,
Right.
Me and my team, we were continuous out in the community, and we changed our district attorney, who has been the district attorney for 23 years here in the state of Georgia, but we got over 180 something deaths of brown and black men that's been killed at the hands of police officers. And these officers have not been there, they haven't been holding them accountable. So our goal was to get someone into that position to start holding these officers accountable for their actions. And so I think we just did that. And even though we have a new district attorney in office right now, I said, if she doesn't do her job within the next 4 years, we'll get her out of office too as well. So our goal is to continuously to push to keep our voices lifted, and our voices, our votes do matter. I hear a lot of people, especially like the older people saying, oh, voting don't matter. Yes, it does, because we just proved in this election that voting, in my team, they're out every single day, Monday through Sunday, pushing people, talking about police violence. We're talking about mass incarceration. All of this plays a part, because it's a domino effect. It's all connected, should I say? But that's our goal here to get people out to vote. And we'll continuously, push in the state of Georgia, because our lives depend on it.
Powerful.
Our goal, thank you so much. Our goal is to really get more people engaged and build community power. You talk about legislation, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We're really trying to push that through. We're trying to push HR 40 through, trying to get something passed through the House as well. So at the federal level, again, I've testified before the House Judiciary Committee, and 2 of my recommendations were actually put into the George Floyd Act, one of them being abolish qualified immunity and to change the use of force doctrine. And so those are the 2 that I'm pushing for. And then we need practice and pattern investigations, not just within these police agencies, but they do need to expand into the DA's offices at this point. But we also have to trickle on down to the state level and local level. I believe there's a lot of communication gaps between these 3 levels of government. And so I'm leaving no stone unturned. I just went through an interim study at the State House. Unfortunately, the Oklahoma legislature is rough. It is rough. I mean, you got lawmakers still trying to pass stop and frisk bills and things of that nature, and Blue Lives Matter bills, giving people the death penalty if they kill a police officer. But on the flip side, they get back pay, they get to go free. And so really trying to see how we push there at the state level. I'll be testifying before the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. I believe it's December the 5th or somewhere around the 1st of December, connected with the Oklahoma Advisory Committee for that U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. And then the local level is where it begins. We got to push our city councilors to know the power and realize the power that they have. Thank God in Tulsa that we finally have a more progressive city council where we may be able to push some policies through. And we've had to fight for this for the last 4 years. And so it's a marathon, and I had to learn that it wasn't going to happen overnight, but it was going to be getting up every morning, picking up that axe and chopping down the tree every single day. And so again, somebody said we got to hold the people we elect accountable. And my city councilor, who represents me, who's my sorority sister, she knows I will hold her accountable if she's not echoing our voices. Period, point blank. And I will build a coalition and vote you out. And I've told her that to her face, and all of the other ones too. And so that's where I am from a legislative standpoint. We're hoping that in Tulsa that possibly we can get an oversight board, because we don't have one. The FOP, they've been fighting us. They want to give us some watered down version, but we're not going to accept anything. Voices, period, point blank. Less than that. So thank you so much.
I echo everything that has been said. The only other caveat that I would add, and I know this is harder, and somebody made a comment, is that we also have to be simultaneously building our own institutions. Particularly as an education activist, I've seen enough, right? I've seen enough everywhere, right? You know, we clearly have to participate in the current process and legislative process, because we would be remiss not to. We pay taxes in this country, we live in this country, we participate in the economy. We actually have to hold these people accountable. However, at the same time, we do need to be looking at a pathway where we can build autonomous systems. I saw our sister Christina Lassiter comment earlier. We need our own schools, period. We know that on this panel, right? We need our own systems of justice. So we have to find the wherewithal to also be talking to each other, strategizing off of Facebook, right? Strategizing with each other to figure out how do we start building these independent institutions. And here's the thing, this isn't the first time we've done that. You know, we've created, as you all know, in Tulsa, Black Wall Streets in the past, where we've had our own institutions for everything. We can do it again. However, we need to learn from the lessons from the past. We need to make sure that we have every single thing that we need to protect what we build in an autonomous manner. And that's what I'll leave you all with today. This has been great.
Yeah.
Powerful. Okay, y'all know I got one more thing, because every time the kids say something, I'm like, okay, well, if we just can just get this one little point. Now I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna stop, because I know we're a little over time. But I thought about our investment in these schools, and one of the conversations we had with Dr. Howard Fuller was that, you know, Black churches are still the largest landowners in this country. And so how can we capitalize on that? You know, and I don't want people to feel like, oh, I'm defeated, I don't have money. Well, here's where you can get some money. Find one of these social justice minded pastors who have all this land, who have these abandoned or not used fellowship halls or education centers, and start this, because that's why they built them. Restart schools in these spaces. I don't care if they're Catholic. I'm not Catholic, but hey, you all had a space. I have the pedagogy and the mindset to educate children that look like us. How can we partner together? We got to partner together across our own lines, right? Across our own aisles, instead of just focusing on Democrats and Republicans. We beyond that now. We got to look at, okay, listen, you're a single mom. Well, we're in a 3-parent household because it's mom, dad, and my mama here. So, you know, we got intergenerational. So we have to cross lines like that to build and invest. And I will say this, churches, faith-based institutions can start a Black education fund. How many youth do you have in your fellowship? Okay, we want to send all of these kids to this school, and it's going to take this amount of money, and we want to track them, right? Because we want to make sure they have scholarships to do whatever it is that they need to do to be successful. Because remember that these are the same youth that are going to have to take care of you when you get older. So that was my caveat. That was my note that I wrote down on how people can make that happen for the school. Christina.
Neo, you got anything you want to close with?
This has just been a very powerful, this has probably been the most powerful episode we've had, with the voices of people who have actually lost, you know, a twin or a son. Like, there's no, even justice can't even repair that wound that they have. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, I fight so hard, and I get information when I need to get information, whether it's, you know, with Dr. Crutcher, and Miss Robinson. She doesn't even know me yet. Like, I'm here in Atlanta. I'm still in Tulsa, but I'm in Atlanta too. I'm an advocate. I'm here for you. I'm here to be your media, to help you push the needle, to help get justice for your family and community. So thank you so much for coming today. It's been a very powerful conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that. I'm just over here. Y'all know that I normally be talking, but I'm just taking it all in because I am in awe of the work that you all have done and the, you know, the things that you power through. So thank you so much for being examples for me. Like I tell Zakia, Zakia is, every time we talk, Zakia is dropping knowledge on me. And I'm just like, sis, thank you so much. So I love and appreciate y'all so much. And keep fighting, you know, keep fighting because we need y'all. And to the audience, I think I want to say that the answers that we're looking for is within us, is in our community, the power and the healing that we need to be the great people that we are and the great people that we descended from. So y'all keep fighting. Be your own activist in that whatever lane fits. But we got to do what we got to do for Black.
That's right.
With that, y'all, thank y'all so much again. Zakia, Ms. Robinson, Dr. Crutcher. Oh my God, I almost messed up. I'm just still over here just in church.
It was good though. This was so powerful.
Yeah. Like what a hell of a, this is a way to kick off Thanksgiving. This is we got to give thanks for this conversation and for these women. So thank y'all so much. We about to head out. We will be here next week. So y'all check us out. But until then, be good, fight the good fight, and stay all the way Black. So thank y'all. All right.
Peace and blessings, everybody.
Yeah.